It has been 6 months since Booker betrayed his team and was exiled for 100 years as a punishment.
100 years from today, they'll meet you here. Till then, you're alone.
The story continues on as a mysterious woman rescues Quinn from the bottom of the ocean. Meanwhile, Andy and the rest of her immortal team continue taking on missions with the help of James Copley. This time, they're tracking a man who's trying to purchase dangerous weapons. Although the team has exiled Booker, they still think of him often and miss him particularly during their missions. While Joe and Nikki distract the guards outside, Andy, Niall, and Copley seize the opportunity to infiltrate the house. After a tense and brutal fight, the team manages to take down the arms dealer, Conrad, thereby neutralizing the threat. That night, the group relaxes, laughing and drinking. Then Copley gets a phone call and steps away to answer. As the evening winds down, everyone heads to their rooms, except Niall, who stays behind and asks Andy how she's really doing. Andy admits that, for the first time in a long while, she feels genuinely happy and at peace. Just then, Copley returns and informs them that Conrad wasn't the actual buyer. He was merely the middleman, and the real buyer remains elusive. He reveals that his former CIA colleagues managed to obtain CCTV footage of the buyer, but they haven't been able to uncover her identity. Niall says she has seen the woman before, in dreams she's been having recently. She describes seeing the woman in a large library with a young man nearby. But something about it bothers her, because in the dream, the woman seems to be hurting him.
Well, there's not enough data yet to get facial recognition, but the moment they do, I'll let you know.
Great.
The next day, in Paris, a drunken Booker opens his door, only to find Quinn, who proceeds to kidnap him. Meanwhile, the team arrives in France for a short break before heading to their safe house in Italy. Andy tells the team to take some time for themselves, while she and Copley head to Seoul to meet a mysterious contact. Then Nikki casually wonders where they should go for sightseeing, but Joe responds that he'd prefer to be alone. As Niall and Nikki walk together, he shares his suspicions that Joe might be hiding something, so they both decide to follow him. Back with Booker, Quinn demands to know where Andy is. He tells her that he's been exiled and is no longer part of the team. Then, in a quiet voice, Quinn asks, "Did she ever talk about me?" Booker replies honestly, "She never stopped." Quinn confesses that she believed Andy had been trapped in some kind of hell, just like she was for 500 years. She says she wanted to escape the chamber to help Andy, but now she realizes she had been free all along. Booker gently interrupts, telling her, Andy was trapped too, just in a different kind of hell.
Oh, that's hard to believe.
Back in France, Niall and Nikki discover that Joe has been secretly in contact with Booker. Joe defends himself, saying Booker is alone and that they abandoned him.
He made his choice, Joe.
Just then, Niall returns and tells them that Booker isn't in his apartment, and there's blood on the floor.
When is the last time you talked to him?
I don't know, a week ago.
Meanwhile, Andy and Copley arrive in Seoul. As they make their way through the crowded streets, Copley turns to her and asks, "Who exactly are we meeting?"
I made a promise the last time I saw him that I would protect his secret. I think maybe I should just check in with him first.
No.
She enters a small house, where her contact turns out to be one of the oldest living immortals, Tua, who is over 2,000 years old. Andy gets straight down to business and asks Tua if he knows Niall. Tua replies that he's seen her in his dreams. Andy explains that Niall has been dreaming of a woman who appeared in his library. Tua, with a somber look, invites her to visit the library, promising to explain more. Andy nods, telling him she once believed her existence had no meaning, until her friend Copley helped her see the ripple effect she had on the world. Tua looks intrigued. Andy then brings Copley and introduces him to Tua. Together, they step into a hidden library filled with detailed records of immortals from all around the world. Tua is also impressed by Copley's in-depth research on the immortals. Then, Andy notices a small section of books missing from one of the shelves. Tua explains that the books were stolen by one of the immortals. Those volumes, he says, contained detailed records about Andy and her team, entries he personally wrote. Andy cuts in and asks Tua to explain more about the woman. Tua reveals that she now goes by the name Discord, believed to be the first immortal. He adds that she was present during Andy and Quinn's capture centuries ago. After helping Andy escape, Tua says he went into hiding and dedicated himself to research, while Discord spent the next 5 centuries amassing wealth, so she would never need to fear another enemy or mortals again.
Healing arms of people like Conrad.
Confused, Andy asks Tua what Discord wants from them, but he admits he doesn't know. After a brief pause, Andy reveals that she's lost her immortality, a revelation that clearly stuns Tua. She then asks him to join her team and help uncover Discord's true intentions.
I think you should pack a bag.
I already have.
At the safe house, Andy introduces Tua to the rest of the team. But the others seem hurt that she never told them about another immortal. Tua quickly steps in, taking the blame, saying he made Andy promise not to reveal his identity. Then Niall tells Andy something has happened to Booker, and reveals that Joe had secretly been keeping in contact with him all along. The group begins to suspect Discord's involvement, just as Joe gets a call from Booker, asking to be picked up. Joe and Nikki leave immediately to retrieve him. Shortly after, they return to the safe house.
So I guess you must be, Tua, right?
It's good to meet you finally, Sebastian.
Booker reveals that Quinn has returned. Andy's heart skips a beat. Then Booker hands her a bottle containing a message. Andy opens it and reads the letter inside.
Andromache, I have returned to a world darker than the tomb. I finally escaped. Only to learn you have gone on living in it freely all these centuries. I need to hear the words that will free me from my true prison. That of a broken promise.
You and me. Until the end.
Find me where you always could.
Andy announces that she's going to meet Quinn. Niall objects, saying it's a bad idea. But Andy replies that she and Quinn were together for over 1,000 years. Still, Niall insists on accompanying her for safety. After driving for hours, they pull over in a quiet spot to rest for the night. Niall soon falls asleep in the car, while Andy, haunted by thoughts of Quinn, steps away to a nearby restroom to freshen up. But once inside, the memories hit hard. She's suddenly struck by a vivid flashback of the day she escaped and tried to strangle the man responsible for separating her from Quinn. Just as her hands tightened around his throat, she saw Quinn nearby, watching. Gently, Quinn stopped her with a quiet reminder. This isn't who you are. Andy is pulled back to the present when Niall walks in. Andy then admits she's terrified that Quinn might not recognize her, or worse, that she might no longer recognize Quinn. Niall is surprised. She's never seen Andy so vulnerable, but Andy explains that she's carried this fear for hundreds of years. The next day, they arrive in Rome, Italy. Andy heads out to meet Quinn, and Niall follows from a distance to ensure her safety. As she walks deeper into the city, Andy spots members of her team quietly positioned along the streets of Rome, watching her back. And then, finally, after over 500 years, Andy sees her estranged lover. Andy apologizes, saying she failed her. But Quinn, her voice filled with quiet pain, describes the agony of waking every few seconds in the depths of the ocean, each time hoping, just hoping, that Andy would come and save her.
I'm so sorry.
Then Andy questions how long she's been out. Quinn replies, months. Andy is hurt. She asks Quinn why she didn't come to meet her sooner. But Quinn responds with bitter sarcasm. You couldn't even find me in that small ocean. Andy cuts in, her voice strained. I searched for centuries. Then Andy asks Quinn to come home with her and fight alongside the team. This angers Quinn, as she resents fighting for mortals who once condemned her to centuries at the bottom of the sea. Andy weakly insists that she can't abandon her team. Quinn walks away, and Andy follows. Meanwhile, Niall spots Discord and follows her. Back with Andy, just as she approaches Quinn in the alleyway, Quinn suddenly attacks. The two engage in a brutal fight. During the fight, Quinn remarks that she remembers giving the necklace Andy is wearing to a woman she once loved long ago, and that Andy is not that woman. Shortly after, Niall shouts at them and warns that Discord is here. Niall pursues Discord, but Andy shouts for her to stop. Quinn then comments, "Is that Niall?" A statement that raises suspicion in Andy. She begins to realize that Quinn was rescued by Discord and may now be working with her. While Niall follows Discord to an old church.
I was there, you know. The acrid stench of hate in the air.
Then Discord casually asks how a Christian girl like her can tolerate what Andy is doing, playing God. But Niall simply replies, "We're not playing God."
We're not playing God. We're helping.
But she reminds Niall that it was Andy who pulled her away from her family.
That was my decision.
But Discord remains unconvinced. She claims that Andy's obsession with interfering in mortal affairs is the reason the immortals are being hunted. She warns Niall and the team to back off. Then she drops a bombshell. Niall is the last immortal who will ever be born, and she possesses immense untapped power. Discord declares that she and Niall are destined to end immortal interference in the human world. Niall says firmly that she would never work with her. Discord then shows a birthmark on her left hand, identical to Niall's, implying they are connected. Back at the safe house, Niall tells the team that Discord claimed Niall is the last immortal, but the others are just as confused as she is. That afternoon, Booker visits Tua and asks what he's working on. Instead, Tua questions Booker, "Has Andy ever been hurt by Niall?" Booker admits she stabbed Andy the day they met. A realization dawns on Tua. He shares a legend he and Discord came across centuries ago, one that says a wound from the last immortal has the power to take away another immortal's power. Tua suspects Discord plans to use Niall to take away their powers. He goes on to explain that a wounded immortal may choose to gift their immortality to someone else, but it must be done willingly and before it's lost forever.
So Andy could become immortal again.
An hour later, Booker goes to Andy's room and tells her that once the situation with Discord is resolved, he plans to leave. Andy says exiling him was a mistake, but Booker admits he deserved it. He confesses that when the team left him, it wrecked him, to think he might never see them again. But now that he has, he says he's grateful. He reflects that when one doesn't have an expiration date, they might forget to say the important things to the people who matter, because when life keeps repeating, it's easy to lose that urgency. He says he'd like to have an expiration date and gently urges Andy to give Quinn time. She may come around. Elsewhere, Discord meets with Quinn. Quinn confesses she wants both the immortals and the world to suffer.
That I can help you with.
Together, they head to Indonesia, to the Serpong nuclear facility. That night, they infiltrate the Serpong facility. With help from Discord's men, Quinn silently and efficiently eliminates the guards. The next day, Booker challenges Niall to a sword fight. Tua watches from the window, then comes down and warns Booker that he is not ready for what he's about to do, but Booker ignores him. Then Tua joins them with a knife in hand. As Niall moves in to attack him, Booker steps in front and takes the hit, getting injured in the process. Booker heads to Andy's room to wash his wound. Unsure of how immortality is transferred, he silently looks at her and closes his eyes, hoping something might happen. That night, Copley gathers the team in the library. He informs them that Discord and Quinn are currently occupying a nuclear facility privately owned by the Chinese, located on Indonesian soil. He shows CCTV footage from inside the heart of the facility, where Discord and Quinn have planted a bomb. If detonated, it could kill at least 10 million people. Copley also reveals that shaped charges have been rigged throughout the facility. If triggered, they could incapacitate the immortals for a significant period of time. Putting the pieces together, Niall believes it's a trap to lure and capture them, but Andy and the rest of the team argue that they have no choice. They must stop the bomb, no matter the motive. After the meeting, Joe and Nikki step outside for some fresh air. Joe, for the first time, expresses his fear that they could end at any moment.
Things end when I see your heart. That's truly immortal.
The team arrives at the Serpong facility. Copley remains outside in a surveillance van, guiding them toward the bomb's location. He advises the team not to use firearms. Andy, Booker, and Niall head deeper into the right wing of the facility, while Tua, Joe, and Nikki take the left. Along the way, Niall spots a shaped charge and successfully deactivates it. Soon, they encounter Discord's Black Ops team, ready for hand-to-hand combat. The Immortals gear up and engage, taking out as many enemies as they can. Meanwhile, Copley guides Tua, Joe, and Nikki to the control room, while Andy is caught off guard and neutralized by a shaped charge. Niall rushes to help, but another explosion brings the structure down on her. Andy manages to break free and escape. Copley urges the team to override the facility's firewall manually. Then, Tua realizes this is part of Discord's plan, to separate the team and pick them off one by one. Just then, Copley notices movement outside the van. He grabs his gun but is ambushed. Inside the facility, Tua, Joe, and Nikki are suddenly exposed to nitrogen gas. As they pass out, they're quickly restrained and sealed in body bags. Meanwhile, Andy tries to reach Tua, Joe, Nikki, and Niall via comms, but receives no response. Suddenly, a group of men attack her. She struggles, but Booker comes to her aid. Eventually, they fight their way into a room where Andy notices a security camera. Discord has been watching them the entire time. At the same moment, Booker realizes something else. Andy is healing again. The doors in the room begin opening and closing on their own. Andy suspects that Discord is trying to split them up. Andy urges Booker to go first, but he reveals that he gave his immortality to her. Andy is confused, but before they can say more enemies flood in. Then Booker tells her, "I got my expiration date. But you still have a purpose." He slips out the door just before it closes, taking on the enemies outside. He fights bravely, but ultimately, he dies. Elsewhere, Niall regains consciousness. Disoriented, she searches for her teammates, but instead runs into Quinn. A fierce fight breaks out. Niall manages to wound Quinn, who is shocked to discover that she's no longer healing. At that moment, Discord arrives and plunges an axe into Niall's chest. Andy continues to make her way through the facility and eventually finds Quinn, wounded, sitting with the bomb, her thumb hovering over the trigger.
Is this where you tell me that this isn't who I am?
But in the end, each one of us has to decide for ourselves who we really are.
Ultimately, Quinn decides not to press it.
Where?
Then Andy hears the roar of a helicopter overhead. She rushes out and leaps onto it, knocking Discord down. They both engage in a brutal final battle. During the fight, Andy realizes that Discord is no longer healing. That's when Discord finally reveals her true plan. She wants her immortality back. She had intended all along to use Niall, the last immortal, to strip the others of their powers and transfer their immortality to herself. In the end, Discord overpowers Andy, leaving her incapacitated, then escapes in a helicopter, vanishing into the night. A few days later, back at the safe house, Andy is seen studying relentlessly, digging deep into the history of immortals, searching for answers. At the same time, she tends to Quinn, who has now lost her immortality. Eventually, Quinn softens. She agrees to join Andy in the mission to save the rest of the team. Quietly, she admits that she didn't truly understand Discord's intentions, or that she had become mortal. Andy looks at her for a moment, and chooses to believe her.